It was thrilling in the morning when the phone jolted me awake. The voice on the other end, my 16-year-old grandson Leo, was trembling in a way I'd never heard before. "Grandma Elsa, don't go home. Please, just stay where you are." His ragged breath sent a chill through my blood. "Leo, what's happening? Why are you talking like this?" I asked, but he just kept repeating, "Don't go home, Grandma. Trust me, I'm begging you." 10 minutes later, from the window of the hotel where I was staying after visiting my sister in the hospital, I saw the red and blue flashing lights of police cruisers surrounding my street. 5, 6, 7 vehicles. My heart stopped. My house, the house where I had raised my children, where I had celebrated every birthday, every Christmas, was being surrounded as if it were a criminal's hideout. What I didn't know was that, according to the papers they had filed that night, the criminal was me. Just 3 hours earlier, when I still believed I had a family that loved me, I had been sitting in that very living room, making chamomile tea. The afternoon had been strange, I have to admit. Robert, my 45-year-old son, had arrived with Caroline, his wife, and with Chloe, my 19-year-old granddaughter. They were all smiling too much. Those forced smiles that now, looking back, I realized never reached their eyes. "Mom, we need to talk about some important things," Robert had said, settling into the green velvet couch that had belonged to my mother. Caroline held a manila folder in her hands, clutching it as if it were something precious. Chloe, my dear granddaughter, avoided looking at me directly. That should have alarmed me. Chloe had always been my partner in crime, my confidant. Since she was little, she would come to tell me her secrets while I cooked or watered the plants in the garden. The late afternoon light filtered through the white lace curtains, creating long shadows on the hardwood floor I had polished just that morning. The scent of the tea mixed with Caroline's strong perfume, a scent I had always found too intense for a home as old as mine. Everything seemed normal, familiar, but there was something in the air that made me feel uneasy. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, pouring the tea into the porcelain cups I had inherited from my grandmother. The same cups I had used to give Robert drinks from when he was a boy with a fever. The same ones where I had comforted Chloe when her first boyfriend broke up with her. Caroline exchanged a look with Robert. It was one of those glances, heavy with meaning, the kind that married couples develop after years together, a silent communication that completely excluded me. "Mom," Robert began, and his voice sounded different, more formal, as if he were reading a prepared speech. "We've been worried about you." "Worried? Why?" The question escaped my mouth with a nervous laugh. I felt like an actress who had forgotten her lines in the middle of a play. "Lately, you've been different," Caroline continued, opening the folder. "You forget things. You repeat the same stories. Sometimes you don't recognize people." Her voice was soft, but there was something calculated about it, as if she had rehearsed these words in front of a mirror. I remained silent, holding my teacup. The hot steam rose to my face, and for a moment I thought that maybe they were right. Maybe I really was losing my memory. At 73 years old, it was possible, but something inside me, a small but firm voice, told me this wasn't about my memory. It was about something much darker. "Chloe has noticed it too," Robert added, and my granddaughter finally looked at me. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying, but she said nothing. She just nodded slowly like a programmed robot. The room filled with a heavy silence. The grandfather clock in the corner marked 6:30 in the evening with its constant tick-tock, a sound that had been the soundtrack of my life for decades. The cream-colored walls decorated with family photographs of happy moments seemed to close in on me. In one of those photos, Robert was 8 years old and hugging me after winning a math competition at school. In another, Chloe was blowing out the candles on her 15th birthday cake, wearing a white dress I had helped pick out. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked, placing the cup on the table with more force than necessary. The sound of porcelain against wood echoed in the silence like a gunshot. Caroline took a paper out of the folder. "We've spoken with Dr. Harris. He thinks it would be a good idea for you to have some medical tests just to be sure." Dr. Harris. The name hit me like a slap. I hadn't seen Dr. Harris in over 2 years. The last time was for a routine checkup, and everything had been perfect. My blood pressure was fine. My blood tests were normal. My mind was as clear as a spring morning. How was it possible that he had talked to my family about my mental health without even seeing me? "When did you talk to Dr. Harris?" I asked, trying to stay calm. My voice sounded strangely quiet, but inside I felt like I was falling into a bottomless pit. "Last week," Robert answered quickly. "We went to consult with him because we were worried. We told him about the episodes you've been having." "What episodes?" The question came out of my throat like a rough whisper. I haven't had any episodes. Caroline exchanged another one of those looks with Robert. It was like watching a play where I was the only one who didn't know the script. Mom, last Tuesday you called us 5 times asking if we'd seen your purse. You were holding it in your hands on the 5th call. That was a lie. I remembered that Tuesday perfectly. I had called only once because I couldn't find my car keys, and I had found them in the kitchen 10 minutes later. But when I opened my mouth to contradict her, I saw the expression on Chloe's face. My granddaughter was looking at me with such sadness that the words got stuck in my throat. And on Friday, Caroline continued, consulting what appeared to be a handwritten list. You went to the grocery store and bought milk 3 times on the same day. The cashier called us because he was concerned. Another lie. I had only gone to the grocery store once on Friday. I had bought my usual things. I had chatted with Kevin, the cashier, who had known me for years, about his new granddaughter. But there was Caroline with her list, with her expression of concern, so convincing that for a moment I doubted my own memory. The sun had set completely, and the living room lamps created yellow circles of light that didn't quite reach the corners. The shadows seemed to move as if they were silent witnesses to this surreal conversation. The aroma of the tea had turned bitter in my mouth. Besides, Robert added, taking out his cell phone, you've been doing strange things with your money. The screen lit up his face as he showed me a screenshot of my bank account. Last month, you withdrew $3,000 in cash. When we asked you what you needed it for, you couldn't tell us. My blood ran cold. I had withdrawn that $3,000 to help Leo with his college expenses. It had been a secret between him and me because I knew Robert would object, thinking it was too much money for a 16-year-old. But Leo had gotten a partial scholarship to study engineering, and he needed money for books and materials. I had been clear with him. It was our secret until he turned 18 and could manage his own finances. I know perfectly well what I used that money for, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew it was useless. They had already decided what they wanted to believe. The next morning, I drove to the hospital to visit my sister. I needed to clear my head to process the absurdity of what had happened. As I sat by her bedside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something truly sinister was unfolding. The forced smiles, the fabricated stories, the sudden concern for my mental health. It all felt like a carefully orchestrated plan. I called Leo. I needed to talk to him, to understand why Chloe had acted so strangely. He didn't answer. That evening, I decided to stay at a hotel near the hospital. I couldn't face going back to that house, not yet, and then the call came. Leo's frantic voice, the police lights surrounding my home. My mind raced, piecing together fragments of their conversation. They were trying to declare me incompetent. They wanted my house, my money. They wanted to erase me. The next morning, I called Leo again, and this time he answered. His voice was still shaky, but there was a new urgency. Grandma, meet me at Willow Creek Park. Don't tell anyone, and don't go home. I drove to the park, my hands gripping the steering wheel. Leo was already there, pacing nervously. When he saw me walking toward him, he jumped to his feet. His face was pale, and he had dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept either. My grandson, who had always been tall for his age, seemed to have shrunk overnight. Grandma, he whispered, hugging me so tightly I could barely breathe. I thought you wouldn't come. I thought maybe they had convinced you that you're really sick. They? I asked, though I already knew who he meant. Leo looked around the empty park once more before answering. Dad, Mom, and Chloe Grandma, they have a horrible plan. I heard everything. He sat on the bench and took his cell phone out of his backpack. Last night, after they got back from your house, they stayed up talking in the kitchen until very late. They thought I was asleep, but I went downstairs to get some water, and I heard them. I recorded part of the conversation with trembling hands. He touched the screen and began to play an audio file. The voices were clearly recognizable. Robert, Caroline, and Chloe speaking in urgent whispers. The lawyer says, we need more evidence that she's losing her mental capacity, Caroline's voice said. A single fake medical consultation won't be enough for the judge. We already have the forged medical documents, Robert replied. Vincent took care of that. And we have the photos of the inside of the house, all her bank accounts, copies of everything. But we need witnesses, Caroline insisted. People who will confirm she's had episodes of confusion. The neighbors, the grocery store staff, someone. Chloe's voice was barely audible. I don't like this. She's my grandma. I love her. Chloe, Robert's voice turned harsh. Your grandmother is fine now, but she's going to die soon anyway. Would you rather her money go to taxes and medical expenses? or that we use it to secure your future, to pay for your college, to buy you a car, to give you the life you deserve. Besides, Caroline added, we're not hurting her. These nursing homes are very comfortable now. She'll be well cared for. And what if she refuses to cooperate? Chloe asked. She won't have a choice, Robert replied. Once the judge declares that she can't make her own decisions, I'll have full legal power. I can sell the house, manage her money, decide where she lives. It will all be legal. The audio cut off there. Leo stopped the recording and looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Grandma, they're going to steal everything from you, and they're going to make you believe you're crazy, so no one will believe you when you try to defend yourself. My world tilted. Hearing my own son talk about me as if I were already dead, as if my life were just an obstacle to his financial plans, was more painful than any illness I could imagine. Is there more? I asked, my voice sounding strangely calm. Leo nodded and played another clip. This time it was a conversation between Caroline and someone else, probably on the phone. Yes, Vincent, I understand. No, she doesn't suspect anything yet. The forged medical documents are perfect. No one will question them. We have pictures of her looking confused at the grocery store. We took them last week when she went shopping. In the photos, she looks disoriented because she was reading her shopping list, but a judge won't know that. The plan is to file the guardianship petition on Monday. By Wednesday, we should have full legal control. Monday? It was Friday. I only had 3 days. Leo, I said, taking his hands in mine. What else do you know? They've talked about you. His expression darkened. That's the part that scares me the most, Grandma. Last night, I heard Dad talking to Mom about legally changing my last name once I turn 18. They want me to be called Leo Martinez instead of Leo Hernandez. I didn't immediately understand why that was important, but Leo continued. I think they want me to inherit some of your money automatically, as if I were your biological grandson. But Grandma, there's something they've never told you. Something about my adoption. My heart stopped. What is it? When my biological parents died, there was a will. They left me money, but it's in a trust fund that I can't touch until I'm 21. It's about $150,000. Dad and Mom have been using that money for their expenses, telling me it was for my care and education, but I've seen the statements. They've spent almost all of it on things for themselves. The picture was becoming clearer and more horrifying. Not only were they planning to steal my money, but they had already been stealing Leo's money for years. Do you have proof of that? I asked. Leo pulled a folder from his backpack. I've been collecting documents for months. Bank statements, receipts, pictures of the expensive things they've bought. Mom's new car, the European vacation last year, their kitchen remodel, all paid for with my trust fund money. I quickly looked through the papers. It was enough evidence to send them to jail for embezzlement of a minor's funds. Leo, this is very dangerous. If they find out you know all this, I know, Grandma, that's why we need to act fast. He leaned toward me, his voice barely a whisper. I have a plan, but I need your help. What plan? Tonight, they're going out to dinner to celebrate that everything is working out perfectly. Chloe is supposed to stay with me, supposedly to watch me, but really to make sure I don't do anything suspicious. But Chloe doesn't know that I know about the recordings on my phone. He pulled a second phone from his backpack. This is a prepaid phone I bought with my allowance money. Chloe doesn't know it exists. Tonight, I'm going to pretend I'm sick to stay in my room. I'm going to record everything I can. Phone conversations, documents. Leo, I interrupted. This is if they catch you, they'll punish you severely. I don't care, Grandma. I can't let them do this to you, or to me. His eyes, so full of pain and determination, mirrored my own resolve. Okay, I said, a new strength rising within me. What's the plan? He outlined it quickly. While they were out, he would gather more evidence. He would also call the police, but not directly. He would use the prepaid phone to send an anonymous tip about suspicious activity at my house, making sure to mention the guardianship petition and the names of Robert, Caroline, and the lawyer Vincent. That's why the police were at my house. They were investigating. And what about you? I asked. I'll tell them I heard strange noises and got scared, so I called you. And then I called the anonymous tip line. They won't suspect I know anything more. And then? Then you call the district attorney's office. You tell them everything. You show them the recordings, the documents. We have to beat them to the punch before they file their petition on Monday. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was our only chance. I spent the rest of Friday and Saturday in a blur of frantic activity. I called a trusted friend, a retired lawyer named Diego, who immediately understood the gravity of the situation. He agreed to meet us at the DA's office first thing Monday morning. On Sunday night, I picked up Leo from his house. He had managed to record more conversations, including a chilling one, where Robert and Caroline discussed how to dispose of my personal belongings after I was institutionalized. He also had photos of the forged medical documents and a copy of the guardianship petition, which listed me as mentally incapacitated. Monday morning, Diego, Leo and I walked into the district attorney's office. A sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Noam Vasquez met us in her office at exactly 8. "Before I review your evidence," she said, "I need to speak with Leo alone." 20 minutes later they emerged. The Diaz expression had changed completely. "Mrs. Martinez, it's clear Leo came to you voluntarily. There is no evidence of abduction. Now please show me the evidence you have against Leo's adoptive parents." We spent the next 2 hours presenting everything. When we finished, she leaned back in her chair. "This is a case of massive fraud and child abuse," she said. "I'm issuing arrest warrants immediately." Her phone rang. After a brief conversation, she hung up. "There are new developments. The police went to arrest Robert Martinez and Caroline Hernandez an hour ago, but they weren't there. Neighbors saw a moving truck at the house very early this morning. It seems they fled." My heart sank. "What about Chloe?" Diego asked in a small voice. "Chloe disappeared with them as well. Since she's an adult, she will face charges when we find them. We've frozen all their bank accounts and issued a nationwide alert. They won't get far," she added. "We also discovered that the lawyer, Vincent Blackwood, has serious issues with the state bar. He's been suspended from practicing law for 6 months for unethical conduct in prior cases. Any document he prepared for your family is legally invalid." The DA arranged for Leo to stay with me under the supervision of a social worker until the situation was resolved. On the way home, we stopped at the bank. The DA had been true to her word. A court order had been issued, returning all the stolen money to my account and to Leo's trust fund. In total, they had stolen nearly $90,000. 6 months later, I was in my garden watching Leo plant tomatoes when the phone rang. It was DA Vasquez. "Mrs. Martinez, we found them." "Where were they?" "In a small town in Arizona, working on a farm under false names. They're being transported back today to face the charges." The trial took place 3 months later. I testified not with anger, but with a deep sadness for everything that had been lost. When Leo testified, his voice was firm but pained. He spoke of years of feeling used, of discovering that the people he loved had been stealing his inheritance since he was 3. "Do you forgive them?" Robert's defense attorney asked him. Leo thought for a long time. "I forgive them for what they did to me," he said finally. "But I can't forgive them for what they did to my grandmother. She didn't deserve that." The sentences were severe. Robert received 5 years in prison for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Caroline received 4 years. Chloe, because of her age at the time of some of the crimes, received 3 years of probation and 800 hours of community service. Vincent Blackwood, the corrupt lawyer, was permanently disbarred and received 2 years in prison. After the trial, Chloe approached me on the courthouse steps. "Grandma," she said, her voice a bare whisper, "can you ever forgive me?" "Chloe, I already forgive you," I told her. "But forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences. You have lost my trust forever, and that is something you will have to live with." 2 years later, Leo graduated from high school as the valedictorian of his class with a full scholarship to a prestigious university for engineering. "Grandma," he said as we toasted with sparkling cider, "do you ever regret fighting them?" "Never," I answered without hesitation. "Not just because I had a right to protect what was mine, but because I had a duty to protect you, and I had a duty to teach you that actions have consequences." Now, 5 years after that night that changed everything, I live alone in my house, but I don't feel lonely. Leo visits every weekend from college. We've built a life together, healing the wounds his family left behind. I've learned that true love requires mutual respect, honesty, and a willingness to make sacrifices for the other's well-being. What my family had offered me was not love. It was toxic dependency disguised as affection. Yesterday, Leo brought me flowers from his university's garden. "For the bravest woman I know." I don't feel brave. I just feel like a woman who did what she had to do. But maybe that's what being brave really is. Not the absence of fear, but doing the right thing in spite of it. Tonight, as I write these last words in my journal, I can hear the sound of rain gently tapping against the windows of the house I almost lost. Leo is upstairs studying for his finals. The chamomile tea is cooling on the table beside me. Everything is quiet, safe, and in its right place. They never touched my name again, and I never went home to a house full of lies.